Okay, now let's speak about Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune have been together in Pisces since 2023 and did not make conjunction in the sign of Pisces. They will make the conjunction in the sign of Aries for the first time in 2025. When these planets make the conjunction, we call it great conjunction. And if in 1 year we have great conjunction, it is an important year. Let me remind you that in 2020 we had 4 great conjunctions. That was really something exceptional. So in 2025 it will be exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune from the August the 1st to the August 16th. The ruler of Mars, the ruler of conjunction Mars, will be in quite strong position, but this conjunction itself is not going to be strong enough because both of those planets will be retrograde. So they will have the tendency to leave the sign of Aquarius. This means that this sensational conjunction does not have enough power to manifest itself in the 2025. But it will happen again in February and March 2026, and then we will really see what it means. By moving into the sign of Aries, Saturn and Neptune symbolize the movement from the feet to the head, from winter to spring, from passivity to activity. In order to understand better what this conjunction in Aries will mean, you can check my older video about Saturn in Pisces, Historical Parallels. This is the name of the video. There I also mention Saturn and Neptune. The current cycle of Saturn and Neptune begins in 1989 in the sign of Capricorn, just a few days after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And this cycle now ends in the years 2025 and 26. That was a 36-year cycle. This means that the consequences of the fall of the Berlin Wall will be shown. It will be shown whether the division of the territories from that time was sustainable, whether this new social system that was established in Europe and other countries was sustainable, and so on. Also, we will see whether this great expectation of people, especially politicians, because the conjunction was in Capricorn, so politicians were very important, did their expectations met? The question is further, what will bring the new cycle in which Saturn and Neptune will combine through the sign of Aries from 2025-26? This cycle will also last 36 years and will have its ups and downs. It is quite certain that will bring some new socialism or a system in which the vulnerable will be helped, or let's say maybe the system in which there will be not so great differences between social classes in the material sense. It is likely that this conjunction will be preceded by a period of great economical collapse, and it is already in a way happening, and it can happen even more. In 1989, people fantasize about the end of totalitarianism, just like we do today. Each in its own way, but there are similarities. The only question is whether we will be misled now, as the members of the so-called Eastern Bloc were misled when they were entering the so-called Western Bloc at the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. Let's ask ourselves also, when was the last time Neptune in Aries? Let's talk now a little Neptune in Aries, about that. It was in 1861, when the Civil War begins in America between the North and the South over slavery. What is very interesting. In Russia, at the same year, serfdom was abolished. And that was one of the biggest reforms of society in the Imperial Russia. Did they succeed in liberating one or the other in those empires, it is a question. Maybe yes, in a way, but the trouble is that we still live in some sort of slavery, all of the people in this planet. We are not the slaves as those were in the past. We are some sort of democratic slaves, but still we are not free, not at all. They are following us on mobile phones 24 hours in a day. They locked down us in the years 2021. They did with us what they wanted. So we are in a way slaves again. It is quite certain with those aspects now that we are going to have that they will give us a greater degree of freedom. And the technocratic project of human robotization will not succeed. It is quite possible. The only question is now how long that certain free state will last and what kind of freedom they are going to give to us. Let's wait and see. Let's ask ourselves further, when was the last time Neptune with Saturn together in Aries? That was in 1703, at the time when colonialism flourished in the West, and even earlier in 1380s when the Turkish invaded the Balkans. So you see what is happening, nothing really nice with this. But to study these years properly, we need to study other transits, and I will try to make a new video, separate video on Saturn and Neptune in Aries. However, to go back a little, it is important to repeat something we have already said. When Neptune was in Pisces from 2011 to 2025, even 26, we had the opportunity to see both negative and positive manifestations of this transit. Watch my videos on the topic Neptune in Pisces. There are many shorter and bigger, longer videos if you need to remind yourself what was that about. As negative manifestations of this transit, we can take mass hysteria and mass manipulations, lies, diseases, fake diseases, and so on. But the positive side of Neptune in Pisces was that he was the protector and the savior in a way. Also, he brought the messenger. Brought the messages. He was like a messenger of the new eon, the new era of religious thought. Let's use this word eon as Gnostics were using. So Neptune was in a way a foreshadowed of new form of religiosity, and of course this also can be good and bad, because these crazy people who rule the world, they know about this. That's why they serve to people now some sort of a new religion that is going to be secular. I'm not going to go into details. I spoke in my videos about this. So we see here that the same energy created troubles and brought protection. It depends what we do with this energy. It is always like that with any transit. So for many years, Neptune was the most dominant planet in the sky. It was very, very strong. And if we say that he was kind of a protector for us, now is the question, what will happen when Neptune moves to Aries? Whether there is going to be any protection for the humans. And the answer is yes, it will be, because Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, as we already described, create these positive aspects. But what is more important here is not that we need the savior and the protection, which is Neptune about. It is much more important to understand that crazy people who rule the world in a way, they create problem and then they kind of save us from that problem. And people want that, or people wanted that until now. But now we need to understand that we do not need this game anymore. So the only and real salvation can be for us knowledge. We just need to know everything what they know, and that's how they cannot rule us anymore. Further, it is necessary to explain that Saturn and Neptune meet in Aries, and that this combination is not well matched. Not Saturn, not Neptune, they do not feel, or Neptune, they do not feel well in the Aries sign. They're quite opposite energies. But still we can assume some topics. So what can be with these planets in Aries for the next 36 years? First, restrictions or bans of the use of some medicines and drugs. Establishment of organizations for the protection of those who are sick or who need protection. Perhaps for protection of those who were wounded in the years 2020 or 2021 because they got this injection which damaged them in a way. There can be appearing of spiritual leaders and social reformers, along with the creation of the system, we said, that will be equal in a way. We said some sort of a socialism. There can be restrictions of the use of weapons, restrictions of military structures, and sort of demilitarization. Then it's possible that will be some sort of limitation of individual political ambitions, that the politicians actually cannot do things for themselves only, in a selfish way. They will be controlled. There also can be some sort of a fear of limitation and inability to use one's will. This is kind of fear of the beginning, because people will be in the position to go into something that is completely new. They never saw this before, and many will be afraid of this. Then it's possible that conservatism among young people will appear, which would be good. And also generally it's starting now, we all will be starting to rebuild something with the knowledge that this will last for the long time. It will be this feeling of, okay, this is the beginning and we need to work for many decades because something was badly damaged or because we were misused, so it's very, very hard to repair things.